Alright, what's going on, you guys? It's Royce Jacob. Welcome back to the channel. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about why I believe Bitcoin is a better investment than gold and why it is gold 2.0 in my opinion. Alright, so always remember that, you guys. This is not financial or investment advice. This is all just my opinion, okay? So keep that in mind. As always, we'll go over each topic individually, and then after we go over all of them, we'll dive into each one with more depth, okay? Also, if you guys do find this content valuable and appreciate it, I would appreciate it if you guys gave it a like and subscribed if you want to catch more content like it. All right, so let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to cover is kind of this bird's eye view of why I personally believe Bitcoin is better than gold. Again, this is just almost my elevator pitch, just some cliff notes from up in here of roughly just generally why I think Bitcoin is better than gold. Okay, so we'll go over that first. I feel like that's a good place to establish this video. And then we'll dive into the charts. Okay, so this is the Bitcoin chart dating back to roughly the genesis of Bitcoin. Okay, so this is back to 2011. This is as early back as it goes as far as price recording goes. This is on TradingView, so we'll just start at 2011. It was made in 2009, 2010. So we'll start there. And then we'll get into gold's chart, okay? So we're a little further back on this chart. We're back to like 1999, 2000. But I think this is a good place to start to show you guys kind of how gold performed throughout different financial crises, okay? So I think that's going to be, I'll get into it with you guys after once we actually get into these, why I think that's good. Gold is a good correlation to Bitcoin in terms of how they perform in financial crises, okay? So we will then go into a fun little video of Mark Cuban giving it's like 15-20 seconds of his take on gold and Bitcoin. That's just for fun, but that leads me into a greater topic, which is the guy who interviewed Mark Cuban in this. His name is Anthony Pompliano, very well-respected investor, an investor of the crypto space and all spaces. But this is his newsletter. It's a private newsletter. It is a little older, so I do want to respect the fact that it's a paid newsletter. And either way, we'll get into it. It's about what he feels will perform the best coming out of this financial crisis and why. So I think this is a really well-written little blog post. He gives gold 3 out of 10, as you can see here. This is a good chart showing gold's price action over the past 10 years in US dollars. And then he gives Bitcoin an 11 out of 10. So obviously he is biased. Because he is a large investor in Bitcoin. That is one of his primary positions and what he works with the most. So he is biased, but he gives some very good, better than I can right off the top of my head, insight onto why he believes Bitcoin is a better investment than gold. So we'll dive into that. We'll read this article, and then we'll get into, we'll briefly go over this Bloomberg piece. Okay, so this is huge. This is a direct report that Bloomberg released recently. It is called the Bitcoin Maturation Leap. Okay, so that's huge that a publication as well respected as Bloomberg released an article like this. It is talking about gold and Bitcoin and how Bitcoin shares a lot of similarities with gold, but just the fact that, again, such a well-established, well-respected news platform like Bloomberg is comparing Bitcoin to gold is insane, and that's very bullish. Okay, so yeah, let's get into each topic, like I said. So we'll go back here, and then, like I said before, we'll get into the cliff notes. All right, so Bitcoin versus gold. As always, anytime you have any debate, it's always good to start with the side you're arguing against. Okay, so in my mind, that's how all good debates start. You wanna be able to argue for the side you're arguing against, if that makes sense. Okay, so I also actually want to preface, I meant to say this in the beginning, that I'm a fan of both gold and Bitcoin. Okay, so I like Bitcoin, I like gold, I hold both in my portfolio. I think both will perform well over the coming months and years. But I just think there's a lot more upside to Bitcoin. Okay, again, I do hold Bitcoin and gold, so I just want to get that off first. I'm not trying to talk shit about gold. I do like gold. I just think Bitcoin will return significantly more as an investment. Okay, so all right, gold, oldest store of value on the planet. Again, it's been around for forever. Tale as old as time, tale as old as humankind, as long as we've been trading goods for the most part. Before that it was like seashells and shit, but for the most parts, gold is the most well-established store of value on the planet. All right, it is highly trusted. People are familiar with it. Okay, because it's so old, and it's so well established as a store of value, people trust it. Okay, when people think of gold, they do the first thing that comes to mind is a store of value. Okay, so that's good. 3, relatively scarce, but it has an indefinite amount. Okay, so gold, very scarce asset. You do have to mine it. It takes a lot of manpower and resources to obtain. So that's a good feature of gold, but it does have an indefinite amount, which when I talk about Bitcoin, I'll show you why that can be a con as well. Okay, so another pro of gold is that it's stable and non-volatile. Okay, so gold, while it does rise, and even as of late, it has risen significantly, and over the years it rises significantly. It is nowhere near as volatile as Bitcoin, so it doesn't have these crazy like 50% moves up and down. So even if it does go down, it doesn't crash or crater. And over time, over a long period of time, it does go up. Okay, so it's non-volatile. It doesn't have any rapid or crazy movements, which is good as a store of value, as somewhere to park your cash, like big sums of cash if you want to keep it safe. And this is the con. Okay, so this is a big con of gold in my mind, is the fact that it's a physical asset, and it is not as efficient as Bitcoin. Okay, so it's physical. Working with gold, imagine transacting in gold. Like if you say, okay, so it wouldn't be super hard if you were just dealing with an ounce. Like an ounce is enough to fit in your pocket. But when you're dealing with large sums of capital, it's very inefficient. Like buying a house with gold would be a tough process. Okay, so that's gold in a nutshell. Let's get into Bitcoin. Bitcoin pro number 1, it's new and exciting, yet scary to some, which is also a con. So it's new and exciting. A lot of new investors right now are getting turned on to Bitcoin, especially with this financial crisis that we're going through right now. A lot of new investors are being turned on to these revolutionary, very world-changing financial assets, especially. With the financial crisis, people want to educate themselves more on finances, and Bitcoin is a very shiny object in the space right now, okay? Because it is a newer asset. As we can see in the chart back here, which we'll get to, it was only made about 10 years ago. So it is very new, but with that freshness of an asset comes some fear. It's very uncertain. A lot of people aren't educated on it, which does make it scary. Okay, so Bitcoin's next pro, which I feel like is arguably its largest argument for Bitcoin as an asset, is that it is absolutely scarce. Okay, so only 21 million Bitcoin will ever exist, and the majority already do exist, which is 18 million. So there's currently 18 million Bitcoin out there. It's arguably less because there's so much Bitcoin that has been lost or tied up that will never be released into the wild, if you want to say that. But yeah, 18 million, say less, even like 15 million is probably more realistic, 12 to 15 million, and only 3 million more over the course of all of time will exist, okay? And the reason that is because it is such a scarce asset with a finite amount, okay? And that kind of gets into this next point, which is the halving that is coming within the next month, okay? So in mid-May, the Bitcoin halving is coming up. I did make a video about this. I have talked about this in previous Bitcoin videos. I'm sure if you guys have heard of Bitcoin at all, it's a very hot button topic right now. It's a trending topic in the world of Bitcoin, and finance as a whole is a Bitcoin halving. And again, I did make a video on it. You guys can go check that out if you want a more in-depth talk about what the Bitcoin halving is. But pretty much it means that the amount of Bitcoin that is being pumped into the circulating supply is cut in half. Okay, so it's going from like 12.5 to like 6.25 in May. Okay, so that it's literally being cut in half. A good way to think about that is that if I'll say this happens every 4 years, roughly every 4 years, this Bitcoin halving. And a good way to think about that when you compare it to gold is if every 4 years half of the gold mines on Earth had to shut down and could never reopen. Okay, so that's a good way kind of just to visualize what the Bitcoin halving is and how significant that supply shock will be when there's literally half the amount of Bitcoin being pushed into the system. Okay, so the next pro is experiencing rapid adoption in terms of technology being built on it. So for example, exchanges, Cash App, Square. Jack Dorsey is a super big fanboy of Bitcoin, which is, we'll talk about why that's super bullish. Founder of Twitter. I mean, his job is to spot trends. Okay, and he is one of the most bullish individuals I've ever seen on Bitcoin. So to be honest, when it comes to trend spotting at a macroeconomic or just global level, I trust his word more than mine. Okay, so that's very bullish in my mind that Jack Dorsey, who is the founder CEO of Twitter and Square, and the Cash App obviously falls under Square. That is very bullish for Bitcoin. Back on track. Sorry, that was kind of a tangent. But there's so much infrastructure being built on Bitcoin. So Coinbase, Binance, these huge exchanges making it easy for people to buy and access these digital goods and cryptocurrencies in general. And then you have like the Cash App and Square, which is making it very easy for consumers and general retail investors who may be interested in Bitcoin, and especially emerging markets. So that's where it's very crucial, like where these things really come into play is in not necessarily the U.S., because we do have a good financial infrastructure, but in emerging markets like Africa, like Southeast Asia, places on the come up, places that are really trying to establish some footing in the entire global economy. Okay, so access to Bitcoin and things like that, just easily being able to transfer Bitcoin and transfer wealth through Bitcoin is huge. And there's so much more, like the debit card right here. Coinbase recently came out with a debit card that you can directly link to Coinbase and use your crypto to buy things. So again, like in the grand scheme of things, Bitcoin only 10 years old, super early. We're so early in the grand scheme of where Bitcoin can potentially go that is that's another pro in itself for Bitcoin. Like we're just so early. There's so much infrastructure to be built on top of this thing in the future. Okay, and then the last pro I have listed on here in direct contradiction to gold, which is a physical asset and not as efficient, is the fact that it's 100% digital and highly efficient, and it's built on math. Okay, that's the beauty. The world, as you guys know, is trending digital, social, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. You guys are watching right now. Like everything is trending digital, and everything is trending towards more efficiency. Okay, so it's very rare. Obviously, people still use cash, use paper, but the majority of us use debit and credit cards, right? Like or Venmo and Cash App. Like everything is trending digital. Things are not trending. And I would like you to give me a valid argument for if they are trending towards physical. But that is also a huge pro for Bitcoin against gold in my mind, is just the factor of efficiency. It's so much more practical, and it's digital. Again, it's just you can with this infrastructure like Square and the Cash App and stuff, like it's going to be easy as sending money through Venmo or PayPal. Okay, and then the biggest pro of both, which again is the reason I do like both gold and Bitcoin, is that it is hard money and it is deflationary. Okay, so it's a deflationary asset, which means that it's scarce. It's absolutely scarce. Or Bitcoin, I should say, is absolutely scarce. Gold again is scarce, but it does not have a finite cap of scarcity on it. But they're both scarce. They both take resources, time, and energy to obtain. And that is good, especially right now with trillions of dollars being pumped into our global economies. You may not see it now. You may not see the decrease in fiat currencies right now, but over time, as we do just continue to pump trillions and trillions into our global economy, it will devalue fiat currencies. Okay, and again, that might not happen this month or next month, but over the coming months and years, that will inevitably happen when just fiat currency is printed. Money printer go. I can't do that. Wish I could do that. Wish I could roll my tongue, but I don't have that kind of dexterity in my tongue. All right, so you guys get it. Money printer go burr. Bitcoin go up. All right, and gold too. Okay, so that was a super long cliff notes, but I'm actually really glad that I got that off. I think that was a pretty solid breakdown of why I personally believe that Bitcoin is better than gold. But yeah, let's get into these charts quick. I don't want to ramble on too long about this, so we'll just get into these charts in general. Okay, so again, this chart dates back to 2011. All right, and at this time, Bitcoin was, you know what? Let's zoom in here so we can see where Bitcoin was at in just November of 2011. Okay, so November 2011, Bitcoin was at 56 cents. Okay, that is insane. So Bitcoin at 56 cents. If you guys, I'm sure you guys remember, in 2017 we hit a high of $20,000. So I'm not gonna even try to equate what that percentage gain is, but that is over 20. So it's a 40,000x, okay, which is absolutely insane from 2011. So just that kind of falls under the beauty of the newness and the volatility of Bitcoin. It's new, it's exciting, but that newness and excitement makes it very volatile, which again is one of the it's actually a pro in my mind. But as far as stability goes and a store of wealth as opposed to investment, that's where gold has it. But from an investment perspective, I think the volatility and the rapid movement makes Bitcoin a way more attractive buy, because that rapid movement is what attracts investors and attracts new faces. When something goes from fucking like 50, we'll go back to like this when people really remembered it. Like in 2017, it went from, call it $1,000 to $20,000. When an asset 20x's, that catches people's attention, all right? And that's what caused this bubble that did in turn deflate and pop and came back down. I'm sure if you guys have been involved in the space, you know this heavy capitulation state, which is where it crashed and just went stagnant for a while prior to kind of rebounding last year. But again, that's the beauty. It does suck if you hold it at the time. It does suck if you don't know how to play it. But that volatility and those rapid price swings are what makes Bitcoin attractive to newer investors and brings more eyes to the space. Okay, so I think long term that is a big win for Bitcoin. And yeah, again, I will make videos in the future going over more technicals and more recent things involving Bitcoin, because I am super bullish on Bitcoin coming up over these coming months because of the halving that is happening in just a few weeks. But yeah, we'll skip that we'll just leave the Bitcoin price here for now. Okay, so let's get into gold. All right, so as I said before, this is dating back to 1999. Just for fun, let's go to 2011, where gold was when Bitcoin was birthed. So that is about like right here. Okay, so from 2011 to 2020, when Bitcoin, so from the birth of Bitcoin to correlating the birth of Bitcoin to where gold was at in 2011. I'll say that. Sorry, I had such a hard time saying that. All right, so in 2011, right here, 2000, we'll just go 2010, whatever. Gold is at about $1,000, okay? From $1,000 to its peak in 2008, it just under 2x. It didn't even 2x, at like 1.7x. All right, so compare that to now. Let's just do that. Yeah. From 2010 to right now, where Bitcoin's at, just call it $8,000 because it's easier math. Bitcoin has went from 50 cents to $8,000. That's a 16,000x, and gold is 2x. Okay, so I'm not saying that's a fair argument in any right, but I mean, just looking at those numbers, Bitcoin 40,000x and gold 2x. Okay, so again, that is because gold is, if you go back to gold's genesis, way back thousands of years, the price of gold has probably done something similar. But the reason I want to make that correlation is because it's important to relate that, like where gold has come over thousands of years to the potential of where Bitcoin can go over even tens of years. Okay, so it's important to think that way. Like the primary reason I wanted to bring these two up is just to know that Bitcoin is so young relative to gold, and it has so much upside ahead of it. Okay. So we'll close that off there. Again, I will make more videos about this in the future, but I'm beginning to ramble, and I want to get into this other stuff, okay, because I think it's important. All right, so again, this is a clip of Mark Cuban on Mr. Anthony Pompliano's podcast, and this is just a quick clip just to kind of preface where we're going with this next article we get into. All right, so hear this.
I'm not a big gold fan. I analogize that word to Bitcoin, and just because what are you going to do, right? We saw it all hit the fan, and there ain't nobody walking around with gold. There ain't nobody asking for payment in gold, and we're printing money as fast as we can, and things aren't deflating or inflating, at least not yet, right? And so...
Okay, so, yeah, what he was saying there was pretty much just that gold is inconvenient, which is kind of what I said initially, is because it's physical, it is limited. So the fact that gold is a physical asset puts a lot of limitations on it in terms of being an efficient form of payment and form of even wealth storage. Like even if you were to say you had $1 million that you wanted to store in gold, that would be extremely inefficient if you had to store $1 million worth of gold. That's a shitload of gold. That is probably definitely not a ton, but I mean, it's a lot of gold, and that does take up a lot of space, and it is inefficient storage when compared to like the fact that you could have $1 million in Bitcoin right on your phone. Okay, so that's an argument for gold. And then again, that was just kind of for fun, just to show that's another thing. Like I mentioned Jack Dorsey earlier. It's just good to show that these very reputable, very successful, accomplished individuals are fans of Bitcoin. I think that's more bullish. Like their opinion, as far as track record goes, means more than mine, and likely more than yours. I'm not trying to talk down to you at all, but just realistically, it's the weight of their words is heavy, strong. There is weight to their words. Okay, so that's what the podcast. That was a podcast episode that Mark Cuban was on right now. Again, I said it was Pomp. He's a very well-respected person in not only the crypto investing space, but the investing space as a whole. He's he's just a very well-respected figure in all of investing and all of finance. And he recently released this blog post that I thought was really good, where he was giving rankings to assets, and those rankings describe how well he thinks they'll perform coming out of this financial crisis. Okay, so as I mentioned previously, we'll actually get into it and read it now. But gold, he gave a 3 out of 10, and I'll just begin to read it. All right, so as I previously mentioned, the U.S. dollar continues to strengthen, both against traditional assets, but also against other currencies. The U.S. government will have to flood the market with dollars in order to weaken the currency, so any inflation hedge assets should do relatively well during the next 24 months. Gold is one of the top 2 assets in this category. Investors are not stupid. They understand that quantitative easing is merely the devaluation of their cash. As they seek out those inflation hedge assets, gold should benefit. But my concern is that gold's upside is not nearly as attractive as other opportunities in the market. Okay, so this is a 10-year gold price in US dollars. Again, I do think that gold will surpass previous highs, almost 100% in my mind, that they will pass the previous highs that they experienced in 2008 and even here in like 2011 and stuff. But again, I think, as he said, there is just so much. Its upside is not nearly as attractive as other assets in the market. And he goes on to talk about Bitcoin. So I'll just get into Bitcoin. I'll read this right here. This means that an investor would be looking at 35 to 65% return over the next 24 months. Most investors would salivate over these types of returns in normal times, but this will likely be underperformance compared to other assets during the same time period coming up. Gold lacks the volatility needed to be overly attractive. And that's a big factor, okay? So gold lacks the volatility, like I was saying earlier with Bitcoin. It's that volatility that makes Bitcoin such an attractive and shiny object in terms of investments. Okay, so Bitcoin will attract investors due to its volatility, because the fact that it goes down significantly also means that it can come up significantly, vice versa. Okay, so Bitcoin, 11 out of 10. This is where he is far more eloquent than me and can articulate his thoughts far better than I have in this video so far. Okay, so Bitcoin's outlook is similar to gold with a few key differences. As the dollar gets devalued, investors will seek inflation hedge assets. Bitcoin and gold are going to be the 2 beneficiaries of this. One key difference is that Bitcoin has much greater levels of volatility than gold, though. While I believe that gold has 35 to 65% upside, I have relatively high confidence, 85% plus, that Bitcoin will more than 3x at a minimum. This would bring it back to new all-time high above $20,000. The volatility that Bitcoin presents is normally looked at as negative by the mainstream media and other investors. It is a feature, not a bug. Bitcoin possesses all of the same inflation hedge qualities that gold has, including a more accurate understanding of the asset's scarcity. It also brings with it much more potential upside given how early the asset is in its life cycle and how relatively small the current investor base is. Okay, so he's kind of just saying things that I've said a lot better and more thoughtfully, but you guys get the point. Bitcoin, because it is such a young asset, and it is just new. It's a new, exciting asset that is volatile, and with that volatility and newness comes a lot more potential upside. Okay, and with the halving coming in, he goes in to talk about the Bitcoin halving and its supply shock and how that will inevitably turn more people on to the scarcity of Bitcoin, because again, with that halving, it is already trending. It's going to be trending even more. It's not necessarily the halving itself, that will make the price of Bitcoin go up. It could potentially fall on the halving. It's what happens after the halving and the eyes that halving event turns on to the scarcity of Bitcoin as an asset, and the importance of a scarce asset like that in these times of trillions of dollars being pumped into our economy again. Okay, so we'll wrap that up there, and then we'll get into this Bitcoin maturation leap. So I actually just wanted to go over one quick piece of this, but the primary reason I wanted to talk about this is just because it kind of falls under the mass adoption category that I was talking about earlier, like how Bitcoin is just being more and more adopted over time. And the fact that Bloomberg, again, a super well established, super traditional, media outlet, has written such a kind of praising Bitcoins. A report that's praising Bitcoin is super bullish in my mind. And we'll go down to where it talks about right here, the 2020 Bitcoin maturity test. Okay, so stock market shakeout accelerates Bitcoin's gold-like transition. This year will confirm Bitcoin's transition from a risk-on speculative asset to crypto market's version of gold, in our view. From a volatility perspective, declines in Bitcoin's reading and the rise for the stock market shifts performance favored towards the crypto asset. Okay, so right here, increasing risk assets betas to the rapidly declining S&P 500 firm the price foundation for Bitcoin and strengthen the crypto's relationship with gold, in our view. Okay, so Bitcoin and gold are both non-correlated assets. So that means that normally when the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, traditional equity markets fall, Bitcoin and gold will rise. Okay, so this Bloomberg is making the assumption that the traditional markets will fall over the coming months, and in turn with that Bitcoin and gold's price will rise because they are hedge assets that are scarce, that are hard money, and again, the fall of traditional markets will cause the rise of Bitcoin and gold. Okay, so again, bullish on both gold and Bitcoin, but just way more bullish on Bitcoin for all the reasons that I just ranted on about. Okay, so I forgot to actually mention this in the very beginning, but I actually have this book that I want to read you guys a passage from. This is probably my favorite book in the crypto space, definitely about Bitcoin. It's called The Bitcoin Standard by Safedin. Is a tough name to pronounce. It's Safedin Amos. Hopefully that's right. Hopefully I didn't butcher that, but probably did. But it's just it's pretty poetic. So prepare yourselves. All right. It's by Ralph Merkle, the inventor of the Merkle tree data structure, which is utilized by Bitcoin to record transactions. Okay, so the guy whose quote this is within this book is his technology, and that Merkle tree, that data structure that he developed, was used in the Bitcoin white paper and the Bitcoin development. Okay, so this is the quote, and again, I just think it's a pretty beautiful, poetic little quote. So I'll read it now. Bitcoin is the first example of a new form of life. It lives and breathes on the internet. It lives because it can pay people to keep it alive. It lives because it performs a useful service that people will pay it to perform. It lives because anyone, anywhere can run a copy of its code. It lives because all the running copies are constantly talking to each other. It lives because if any one copy is corrupted, it is discarded, quickly and without any fuss or muss. It lives because it is radically transparent. Anyone can see its code and see exactly what it does. It can't be changed. It can't be argued with. It can't be tampered with. It can't be corrupted. It can't be stopped. It can't even be interrupted. If nuclear war destroyed half our planet, it would continue to live uncorrupted. It would continue to offer its services. It would continue to pay people to keep it alive. Next page, sorry. The only way to shut it down is to kill every server that hosts it, which is hard because a lot of servers host it in a lot of countries and a lot of people want to use it. Realistically, the only way to kill it is to make the service it offers so useless and obsolete that no one wants to use it. So obsolete that no one wants to pay for it. No one wants to host it. Then it will have no money to pay anyone. Then it will starve to death. But as long as there are people who want to use it, it's very hard to kill or corrupt or stop or interrupt. Okay, so again, he's an engineer. He's a coder. So the way he wrote that was kind of based around code. But I won't go over like the beauty of Bitcoin's white paper and Bitcoin's design in this video. You guys can look into that right now. I actually just listened to a podcast with Jack Dorsey and he was talking about how the Bitcoin white paper and code is one of the most brilliant code engineering works, computer engineering works of all time. And the same as Kevin Systrom, who's the co-founder of Instagram. He's also a big Bitcoin bull. He's a big fan of Bitcoin and the code and white paper involved with Bitcoin. So I'll let you guys dive into that if you want. I've already gone way too long-winded on this video, so sorry about that. But I am passionate about this, and I truly do believe Bitcoin is the best investment of our lifetime, you guys. So I do encourage you to go do more research. Again, this is all just my opinion. This is just me ranting and raving about what I think. So go do your own research, make your own decisions, and just definitely let me know down below. Drop a comment if you guys disagree with me, if you guys think I'm full of shit, or if you guys agree and why you agree or why you disagree. It's always good to just get these conversations started, because again, they are any conversation is productive conversation when it comes to this stuff. Okay, so we'll wrap it up there. If you guys want to catch this, if you guys want to buy this book, I'll leave the link down in the description. It is an Amazon affiliate link, so everything down there is an Amazon affiliate link, aside from a couple courses I have. But it's just a good way to help me out. I get like 5% of the order at no cost to you if you buy it through that link. So if so, great. If not, no worries. I also want to shout this out, because I don't talk about it much, but I made it and I'm pretty proud of it. It's the Bullish collection. I actually have this shirt on right now. This is the Bullish, the Stealth Pocket Bull organic t-shirt. It is an organic t-shirt, but I mean, it is comfortable, so I'll give it that. But this is the Bullish collection. Bullish means optimistic. And there is, if you guys are Bitcoin fans or cryptocurrency fans, there is some Bitcoin merch here, Bitcoin Bull, Ethereum Bull, and just some merch that I designed. I come from a clothing design background prior to getting into investing heavily. So again, I just like doing this. It's kind of a passion project, but this helps me out too. If you guys want to cop one of these, get something sick for yourself and help me out as well in the process. So yeah, stickers, hats, shirts, solid mug. I drink out of this bad boy every morning. So if you guys check that out, I appreciate that too. So wrap it up there finally. So I appreciate you guys watching. As always, make waves in these markets. Until next time, peace. Peace.